Hey, guys, tonight we're stepping back in time to a cold, foggy morning in a Viking village where the air is thick with the smell of damp earth and roasted meat. As the first light of day gently pushes aside the gloom, the village begins to stir. The ground is still wet from last night's rain, the sheep are grumbling, and well, you're probably standing in a rustic, humble home, scratching your head, wondering why you've ended up here in the middle of a Viking wedding. But don't worry, nothing's too dangerous. Probably. You've survived worse, right? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to post your location and local time in the comments. It's always fun to know where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As the day begins, you step outside, the mist still hanging low over the village square. The sound of cracking firewood and the gentle clink of iron from the blacksmith's forge fills the air. You've survived your fair share of Viking justice, whatever that means. But today is all about something new. The wedding. The whole village seems to have gathered, dressed in their best, preparing for the grand ceremony. You're not entirely sure what's going on, but you know it's going to be an event to remember. You take a deep breath of the morning air, the scent of pine and earthy dampness, and your heart skips a beat. You're about to witness one of the most sacred rituals in Viking culture, marriage. But it's not quite what you expected. Your first real sight is the bride and groom standing together, facing the crowd. The groom, a broad-shouldered man with the face of a warrior, looks at his bride with a mixture of pride and nervousness. She, a graceful woman, with a crown of flowers and a dress woven from the finest wool, stands just slightly ahead, as though leading the way into this new chapter. There's a tension in the air, an excitement, yes, but also a quiet solemnity that you can feel in your chest. This isn't just any celebration. This is the forging of a bond that will carry the weight of Viking society. The groom is trying hard not to fidget. He adjusts his cloak for the 100th time, his boots making a soft thud on the ground as he shifts his weight. His hands tremble slightly, and you catch the faintest glimmer of nervousness in his eyes. But the bride, she stands tall, unbothered by the weight of the moment. You can tell she's been through this before. Perhaps not with this groom, but with this ceremony. This is her world, and she's ready for it. You watch as the crowd settles into a respectful silence, eyes fixed on the couple. It's clear this isn't just an exchange of vows. It's an exchange of power, status, and respect within this small, tight-knit Viking community. Marriage isn't just about love here. It's about survival. You're expected to pull your weight, share the work, and bear children to carry on the legacy. There's no room for frivolity. Historians still argue about how formal Viking weddings really were. Some suggest the ceremony could range from simple vows exchanged under the open sky to grand affairs with feasts and ritualistic blessings. But one thing's for sure, A Viking wedding wasn't just about a party. It was about cementing a bond that would hold under the harshest of conditions. And with every gaze that lands on the couple, you begin to understand why this is such a big deal. The crowd around the couple begins to stir, but not in an anxious, restless way. No, there's a calm, organized bustle to it all. The women of the village gather near the center, making sure that the ceremonial space is perfectly prepared. Fresh herbs are sprinkled across the ground, candles are carefully placed in their holders, and the distinct smell of meat roasting over open fires starts to mingle with the earthy scent of the morning. It's clear that this wedding isn't just a personal affair. It's a community event. Everyone plays a role. You watch as an elder woman, her face weathered and creased with years of hard labor, approaches the bride. With a steady hand, she smooths out the bride's gown, adjusting the fabric of the ceremonial robe. There's a subtle smile on the woman's lips as she pulls the bride's veil into place. It's adorned with small flowers, perhaps wild daisies and lavender from the nearby fields, but there's also a deeper symbolism in those flowers. You remember hearing stories. Flowers like these were meant to ward off evil spirits, ensuring that the union would be blessed and protected by the gods. Meanwhile, the groom stands stiffly at the altar, his chest puffed out with pride. He can't help but glance at the bride, his face momentarily lighting up with awe before quickly turning back to the proceedings. As part of the wedding ritual, he must maintain a stoic appearance, but you can see the pride in his posture. It's the Viking way, no room for weakness, especially not in a moment this important. Historians still debate how much of Viking marriage customs were tied to practical needs versus religious beliefs. Some say the process was largely secular, built on survival and property exchange, while others believe there were strong spiritual ties to fertility and blessings from the gods. Either way, the symbolism of marriage, like everything in Viking society, was closely tied to status and strength. The public display was as important as the private vows. As the bride takes a slow, graceful step toward the groom, the crowd remains silent. The only sounds are the soft rustling of the wind through the trees, the occasional murmur from a child, and the crackling of the fire. The couple approaches the ceremonial space, where the elder will bless them, and the ceremony is about to begin in earnest. You realize you're standing at the very center of something ancient, something that has been passed down through the generations. You might not be a participant in the ceremony, but you are most certainly a witness. A living part of the tapestry of Viking tradition, if only for today. You're struck by the weight of the moment, the sense of permanence embedded in this very land. The elder steps forward and raises her hands. The sky above seems to darken just slightly, as if nature itself is leaning in to hear the words that are about to be spoken. The bride and groom bow their heads as the elder murmurs a prayer, calling on the gods to bless their union. The prayer is in Old Norse, a language as old as the mountains themselves. The words flow like a river, slow but steady, their meaning heavy with significance. As you listen, you catch glimpses of the ancient world in her voice, the rhythm of the old gods, the ties to a past that never truly fades. Historians have long debated the true nature of Viking spiritual practices during weddings. Some believe they invoked Freyja, the goddess of love and fertility, while others argue that Thor and Odin were called upon for their strength and protection. Whatever the case, the gods were always included. In Viking weddings, the divine was never far behind. The air grows heavier with each passing moment. The elders' words continue to float through the air, sacred and steady, while the couple remains still, their hands clasped tightly together. You can see the sweat beginning to bead on the groom's forehead, his body tense from the weight of the ceremony. His hands, though firmly holding hers, are trembling ever so slightly. The bride, in contrast, stands composed, her face serene, eyes focused ahead as if nothing in the world could make her falter. But you can tell she's feeling it too. The pressure of the moment, the weight of her family's expectations, and the power of the gods watching over them. As the ceremony progresses, you're struck by the absence of modern fanfare. There are no grand speeches, no lavish displays of wealth or emotion. The ceremony is simple, but steeped in tradition. The Viking way, pragmatic, focused on the core of the matter. It's a stark contrast to the noisy, bustling weddings you might be used to. No frills, no distractions, just two people, bound together by fate, standing under the watchful eyes of their gods and their community. The moment arrives when the groom is asked to declare his vows. He takes a deep breath, eyes narrowing as he begins to speak, his voice steady, though you can hear the slight crack in his throat. "I vow to protect and cherish you," he says, "to stand with you through fire and storm, to build our lives together, and to honor the gods in all that I do." His words echo in the silent square, and for a moment you feel a ripple of emotion among the gathered villagers. It's not a grand proclamation, but the weight of those simple words seems to settle on the air, just as heavy as the stones that line the village paths. Historians have long debated the depth of Viking marriage vows. Some scholars suggest that they were not just vows of love and loyalty, but also vows of mutual survival and duty, bound not only by emotional ties, but also by the very practical realities of Viking life. A wife was expected to bear children, manage the household, and support her husband in his duties. A husband, in return, was expected to protect her, ensure the safety of their home, and provide for their future. While romantic love existed, the notion of duty often carried more weight. The bride's turn comes next. Her voice is softer, but just as firm. "I vow to walk beside you," she says, "to be your partner in all things, to share in your joys and struggles, and to honor our ancestors as we build our legacy." Her words are simple, but they carry the same weight. The vows are not just personal promises, but a public declaration of the life they are about to share. A life that will be scrutinized by the community, and judged by the gods themselves. As she finishes, there's a moment of silence. You can almost feel the tension in the air, the collective breath of the village held in anticipation. Then, slowly, the elder nods and raises her hands again, signaling the next part of the ceremony. The fire in the center of the square crackles, sending sparks into the air, and the villagers begin to stir, breaking the silence with murmurs and glances. The vows are complete, but the marriage is not yet sealed. There is still more to come. The next step in the ceremony involves a symbolic gesture. The bride and groom must exchange gifts, something small but meaningful, that signifies their commitment to each other and their new life together. The groom presents the bride with a small leather pouch filled with silver coins, a gift of wealth and security for their future. She, in turn, hands him a small, intricately carved wooden chest, a symbol of the home they will build together. The exchange is simple, yet the significance is profound. In Viking society, gifts were not just tokens of affection. They were a sign of mutual trust and respect. The coins represent the promise of wealth and security, while the wooden chest represents the foundation of their home, a place of warmth and safety. It's a small, quiet exchange, but you can feel the weight of it. This is what marriage in Viking society is all about: security, survival, and a partnership forged in the crucible of life. Historians still argue whether the giving of gifts in Viking weddings was purely symbolic, or if it also had legal implications. Some scholars believe that the gifts were a form of dowry, intended to ensure the bride's security in the event of her husband's death or dishonor. Others argue that they were simply a form of public affirmation, a way for the couple to demonstrate their commitment to each other and their community. Now, the final act of the wedding ceremony is upon you. The sun has climbed higher in the sky, casting golden light over the gathering, and you can feel the warmth in your bones as the couple approaches the final part of their vows. The people in the square have begun to gather closer, the anticipation in the air palpable. There is a murmur of excitement as the bride and groom kneel together before the sacred altar, the elder standing before them, ready to seal their union in the eyes of the gods. The moment feels different now. The tension from earlier has melted away, replaced by a sense of calm. The groom's shoulders relax, and the bride's lips curl into the smallest of smiles. It's as though they've stepped beyond the ceremony and into their future, bound together by fate, their vows already spoken. All that remains is the final blessing. The elder, holding a small golden chalice filled with mead, speaks the final words of the ceremony. May Freya bless this union, and may the gods watch over you as you build your life together. She pours the mead into a ceremonial cup, the liquid shimmering in the light. The bride and groom take turns drinking from it, sealing their bond in the most sacred way possible. You can see the joy in their eyes as they drink, as if each sip brings them closer to the life they've promised each other. The crowd watches in silence, the air thick with reverence. It's a quiet moment of unity, where all the distractions of the world fade away, and only the bond between the bride and groom remains. Historians often point to the importance of mead in Viking society, not just as a drink, but as a symbol of unity and strength. It was believed that mead, brewed with honey and sometimes infused with herbs, had mystical properties, connecting the drinker to the gods. In weddings, it was said to carry the blessing of Freya, the goddess of love and fertility, ensuring a strong, fruitful union. But even in Viking times, there was a slight disagreement among scholars as to how the mead ritual was performed. Some believed it was a shared drink, while others argued that it was more of a ceremonial offering to the gods. As the couple finishes their drink, the final blessing is given. The elder raises her hands to the sky, invoking the gods one last time. The wind picks up slightly, rustling the leaves of the trees and sending a shiver through the crowd. The moment feels almost sacred, and for a brief second, you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, part of a long line of traditions that stretch back through the ages. With the final blessing complete, the couple rises, standing tall and united. The crowd bursts into applause, the sound echoing across the square. The groom smiles broadly, and the bride blushes, her eyes shining with happiness. The ceremony is complete, but the celebrations are only just beginning. As the newlyweds move toward the feast, you can hear the distant sounds of music and laughter, the clang of metal as the blacksmith prepares to join in. You follow along, the feeling of camaraderie thick in the air. The whole village is part of this moment, part of this union. The bride and groom may be the focal point, but it is the community that surrounds them, supporting them in their new life together. The feast is already being prepared, tables laden with bread, roasted meats, and cheeses. The scent of cooking food wafts through the air, and your stomach growls in anticipation. The ale is already flowing freely, and the laughter grows louder with each passing minute. Historians still argue whether Viking wedding feasts were meant solely to celebrate, or whether they were also a form of social reinforcement. Some believe that the feast was a way for the community to publicly acknowledge the couple's union, ensuring that everyone was invested in the success of the marriage. Others suggest that the feast was more of a ceremonial formality, a way to wrap up the ceremony and turn attention to the ongoing social dynamics of the village. As you sit down to eat, you watch the bride and groom, their faces still glowing with happiness. They smile at each other across the table, the weight of their vows still fresh in their minds. But now, it's time for celebration. The music begins to play, and the village begins to join in, filling the air with the sound of singing, dancing, and laughter. You realize that despite the gravity of the vows, despite the solemnity of the ceremony, Viking weddings were also about joy, about sharing the happiness of the couple with the entire village. There's something raw and human about this celebration, a reminder that even in a world as harsh and brutal as Viking life, there is always room for love, for unity, and for a good, hearty feast. The feast begins in earnest, and the sounds of merriment rise with the clink of mugs, the scrape of utensils on stone, and the hearty laughter of villagers who are just as much a part of the celebration as the bride and groom. The long tables, filled with roasted boar, thick loaves of bread, and bowls of mead, stretch out under the open sky. The smoke from the fire pit swirls upward, mixing with the scent of roasting meat and fresh herbs. You grab a piece of bread, slather it with honey, and take a bite, the sweetness cutting through the salty air. It's a simple pleasure, but in this moment, it feels like a small slice of heaven. The sound of music fills the air, and before long, the first dance begins. A fiddler steps forward, his bow moving smoothly across the strings, and the villagers begin to clap in time with the music. The rhythm is infectious, and soon enough, you find yourself pulled into the dance. Historians still argue about the role of music in Viking weddings. Some believe that it was a form of ritualistic celebration, meant to honor the gods, while others suggest that it was simply a form of entertainment, a way to release the tension after the seriousness of the vows. Whatever the reason, it's clear that music was central to the Viking wedding experience. As you join in the dance, the infectious energy of the people around you lifts your spirits. The laughter and the movement are almost dizzying, and for a brief moment you forget the weight of everything that came before. The bride and groom join in too, their faces flushed with joy. The bride is laughing as she twirls in her wedding dress, the flowers in her hair bouncing with every movement. The groom, now freed from the formality of the ceremony, lets loose, his feet moving faster than you thought possible for a man of his size. They are both radiant, caught up in the joy of the moment, surrounded by the love and support of their community. The dance continues, the music flowing through the village square like a living thing. You can feel the collective heartbeat of the village in the rhythm of the feet on the earth. The sound of drums and flutes fills the air, and even the animals seem to be caught up in the energy of it all. A goat bleats in time with the music, and a few children race around the edge of the square, their laughter ringing out like a sweet counterpoint to the rest of the celebration. As the dance winds down, a boisterous cheer rises from the crowd. The bride and groom share a brief but heartfelt kiss, and the crowd erupts in applause, the sound echoing through the village. It's a simple kiss, but it feels like the seal on a contract, the moment where the community acknowledges not just the bond between two people, but the bond that connects everyone in the village. This wedding isn't just about the couple. It's about all of them, together, as a tribe. And as the couple steps back from the dance, smiling and laughing, you can't help but feel a deep sense of belonging. Historians often point to Viking weddings as a symbol of community strength. Unlike modern weddings, which often focus solely on the couple, Viking marriages were seen as a union that affected everyone in the community. The wedding was not just a personal event, but a communal one, where everyone played a part, either by attending, supporting, or participating in the celebrations. The music fades as the feast continues, and you settle into your spot at the table, your belly full and your heart lighter than it's been in weeks. The evening stretches on, and you find yourself enjoying the simplicity of it all, the sound of clinking mugs, the glow of the firelight, the warm food filling your belly. There's a comfort in these small, shared moments, a feeling that despite the chaos of the world outside, this village, this community, will carry on, bound together by traditions, by laughter, and by love. As the night wears on, the moon rises higher in the sky, casting a soft silver glow over the village square. The villagers are still talking and laughing, their voices low and warm in the night air. The feast is winding down, but the joy doesn't fade. Instead, it lingers in the air, like the last notes of a song that won't quite leave your mind. You watch as the bride and groom slip away, hand in hand, toward their new life. The crowd parts to let them through, and as they disappear into the night, there's a sense of finality. The ceremony is over. The vows have been made, but the story of their union, of their lives together, is just beginning. The village square is beginning to quiet down as the celebration winds to a close. The last of the mead is drunk, the remaining food scattered in leftover bits on the tables, and the dancers are now stretching out their limbs, their faces flushed with exertion and happiness. The night feels long and soft, as if it has just slipped into a slower rhythm, comfortable and content. A few villagers are still talking quietly, sharing stories, while others head toward the edge of the village to sleep, their steps heavy but satisfied. You remain seated at the table for a moment longer, savoring the stillness that's finally settled over the place. The air feels thick with the remnants of joy and warmth. The mead, the laughter, the music, all still lingering, like an aftertaste you can't quite shake. You glance around, noticing that the couple's absence is felt, though only for a moment. Already, the focus is shifting back to the ongoing rhythms of daily life, as it always does. The marriage has been marked, but the village continues, unaffected by the fleeting nature of the event. As the final strains of the music fade into the distance, you catch sight of the groom's father, a broad man with a deep-set brow, who stands near the edge of the firelight. His face is calm, reflective even, as he watches his son disappear into the dark with his bride. The elder man's eyes are soft but tired, as if he's already been through the motions of this moment countless times. He looks over at you, his gaze steady, and gives a brief nod. It's then that you realize the full weight of what's happened today. It's not just a wedding, it's an affirmation, a statement of survival. The bride and groom aren't just pledging themselves to each other. They are pledging their lives to this land, to this community. Their union is not just personal, It's social, economic, and spiritual. A Viking marriage isn't simply about love. It's about continuity, about fortifying the future with every action. A marriage here is a binding contract with fate itself. Historians still debate whether Viking marriages were more rooted in love or survival. Some scholars argue that the bond of marriage was purely practical, with love seen as secondary to the need for family, labor, and alliances. Others believe that while practicality was essential, love still played an important role in these unions. After all, Vikings had long, cold winters and long, perilous journeys. Love was as necessary as the strength of the marriage itself. But in the end, Viking marriages were not built on a single foundation. They were designed to endure, to evolve, and to stand firm against the storms of life. You stand up, stretching your arms, and glancing around at the quieting village. A few lanterns flicker in the distance, casting a soft glow on the surrounding houses. The day, with all its intensity and energy, is finally winding down, and you feel a heavy pull to follow the others and find your place in the warmth of a home. But before you do, you take one last look at the distant horizon, where the last light of the day is melting away into the shadow of the mountains. The village, the people, the traditions, everything feels deeply rooted in time, like an ancient tree with roots stretching back hundreds of years. The wedding has been a celebration, yes, but it's also been a reaffirmation of all that came before. The generations that have lived, loved, and survived in this place have left their marks, their names etched into the very stones of the village. You wonder how many weddings like this one have taken place in this very spot. How many couples have walked this same path, exchanged these same vows, and sat at these same tables, laughing and feasting in the shadow of the mountains. You feel a strange sense of belonging, despite your own foreignness. The Viking world is vast and untamed, but for tonight, you are a part of it. It's not just the bride and groom who are united in this moment, but the entire village, bound together by the simple, unspoken truth of their shared existence. As you walk towards the edge of the village, you can hear the faint sound of the wind in the trees, the quiet murmur of voices, and the occasional bark of a dog. The darkness feels familiar now, soft and accepting. The last traces of the celebration fade into the cool night air, and you realize that Viking life isn't just about survival. It's about the joy of community, the strength of bonds, and the simplicity of living in harmony with nature and each other. The night settles in around you as you head home, the last echoes of the wedding celebrations fading into the distance. Tomorrow, the village will continue, and life will go on. But for tonight, everything feels still. Everything feels complete. The morning after the wedding arrives slowly, as if still lingering in the aftermath of the festivities. The air is cool but refreshing, and you can hear the distant crowing of roosters and the soft, clatter of pots being prepared for the day's meals. The village is waking up again, but it feels different today, quieter, more settled, as if the weight of the wedding's energy has softened into the rhythm of daily life. You step outside into the fresh morning light, the ground beneath your boots still damp from the previous evening's rain. The village, still nestled in the valley, is bathed in a soft golden glow as the sun rises higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the huts and the earth. The people of the village are already beginning their daily routines. Women are sweeping the dirt paths in front of their homes. Children are playing near the edge of the square, and men are gathering around the blacksmith's forge, ready to start their work for the day. But you're not here for the morning hustle. You're here to see what comes after the wedding, the ripple effects it has on the lives of those who remain behind. You wander through the square, your eyes scanning the familiar faces that now seem a little different, a little more at peace, even after the raucous celebrations. Everyone seems to be moving with a quiet purpose, as if they've all just completed something important and are now ready to settle back into their roles. You pause near the spot where the wedding had taken place the day before, now empty except for a few scattered pieces of straw and a single wilted flower. The remains of the ceremony's decoration. It feels odd, almost like a dream, that just yesterday this very spot had been filled with the sound of music, laughter, and joy. Today the air is still, and the only sounds are the soft murmur of conversation and the occasional clink of metal on metal from the forge. As you walk past the homes, you catch snippets of conversation. People are discussing the wedding, of course, sharing bits of gossip, reminiscing about the bride's dress, the groom's nervousness, the feast. But there's more beneath the surface today. The village is reflecting. The shared celebration of the couple's union has cast a calm, almost reverent feeling over the place. You hear one woman, older than the rest, whispering to her friend, "It wasn't just the vows that made them one. It's the support of the community, the bonds we share. That's what makes it last." There it is, the essence of Viking life, distilled into a single sentence. It's not just about the personal commitment between the bride and groom. It's about the community's role in supporting and sustaining that commitment. In a world where survival is paramount, marriage is about more than love. It's about creating alliances, strengthening ties, and ensuring that the bonds between people remain strong, no matter the trials they face. Historians debate whether Viking marriages were based solely on pragmatic concerns, like alliances and survival, or whether they truly embodied love. While love played a part, it wasn't always the primary focus. Viking marriages were about the balance between survival and harmony. A marriage was not just about two people. It was about weaving them into the fabric of the community. As you continue your walk, you spot the bride and groom in the distance, not in their wedding finery anymore, but in simple, practical clothing. The bride is holding a basket, her hands busy with the tasks of the day, while the groom is at the blacksmith's forge, helping to hammer iron into useful tools. Their roles are clear now, no longer the focus of ceremony, but key figures in the daily work of the village. And you notice something in their posture, in the way they move. There's a quiet confidence now, a sense of belonging and purpose that wasn't there yesterday. It's a stark reminder of the Viking worldview. Life is hard. There's no room for softness in a world that demands so much. But there's beauty in the simplicity of it. The shared work, the shared joy, the shared struggle. It's what binds everyone together. You take a deep breath, feeling the weight of the morning settling around you. The village, still waking up, still finding its rhythm, is exactly as it should be, alive, connected, and full of the quiet hum of daily life. The wedding is over, but the community it celebrated is just beginning. The bride and groom pass by you, smiling as they go about their work, and you can't help but feel a small, quiet pride for them. Their union has been sealed not just by vows, but by the steady, unspoken bond that will hold them together for years to come. And perhaps, in a strange way, that's the most Viking thing of all. The day stretches out before you, calm and steady, as the village continues to move forward. The air is fresher now, the morning fog finally lifting, revealing the full beauty of the surrounding hills and forests. The sun, warm and soft, casts a golden hue over the landscape. It feels like everything is in perfect balance, the steady pulse of Viking life resuming its usual rhythm after the wedding festivities. But as you walk through the village, you realize something new. The wedding may be over, but its effects ripple through the community in subtle ways. The first change you notice is in the way people are talking. They've started to speak a little more slowly, more deliberately. You overhear snippets of conversation that seem a little more thoughtful than usual. People discussing not just their daily tasks, but their hopes, their dreams, even their fears. The wedding has done something to everyone here. A quiet reminder of the importance of unity, of family, and of what it means to be part of something larger than yourself. It's a sense of shared purpose that lingers in the air, even as the day progresses. You pause by the blacksmith's forge, where the groom is still at work. The sound of hammer striking iron fills the air, each strike punctuating the rhythm of the village. His face is set in concentration, but you notice the slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He's not just making tools or weapons, he's forging his future. It's a reminder of how Viking life was always about survival and progress. No one stood still here. Life was constantly moving forward, and each person had a role to play. Historians have long debated the nature of Viking marriages. While most agree that love played a part in these unions, the practical aspects were just as significant. Marriages were often forged through alliances, property exchanges, and the promise of mutual support. The Viking world was harsh, and these unions were meant to withstand it. The wedding was just the beginning. The real test came in the years that followed, when survival children, and the shared responsibilities of the home and community took precedence over individual desires. As you continue your walk, you spot the bride again, this time at the well, filling a large wooden bucket with water. She moves gracefully, despite the heavy load, her strength apparent in the way she carries herself. You realize that Viking women were just as much the backbone of society as the men, often the ones who ran the home, cared for the children, and ensured that the family survived through the harsh winters. It's not glamorous work, but it's vital. You can't help but smile at the sight of her. There's something so quietly powerful about the way she moves through the world. Her life is far from easy, but it is hers, and she faces it with the same determination that the village faces its challenges. In a way, it's that quiet strength that binds everyone together, the knowledge that you will endure, not alone, but as part of a greater whole. The groom finishes his work at the forge, wiping the sweat from his brow, and walks toward her. He takes the bucket from her hands, his movements gentle, but purposeful. For a moment, they stand there together, sharing a quiet, unspoken understanding. No words are needed. This is their life now, shared, intertwined, built on mutual respect, love, and the knowledge that together they can face anything the world throws at them. You find yourself thinking about your own place in the village. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of Viking life as something chaotic and violent, but you realize now that it's about more than that. It's about community, about strength, about standing together in the face of hardship. The Viking world may have been brutal, but it was also a world that valued unity, loyalty, and the shared bonds that kept them all alive. The day passes slowly, and as the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, you find a quiet place to sit and watch the last vestiges of daylight fade away. The wedding may be over, but the sense of togetherness it brought to the village lingers. The couple's bond has been solidified, but so too has the bond between all the people here. The village is stronger now, more unified, and you can't help but feel grateful to be a part of it, even if only for a brief moment. Historians often point to Viking weddings as a symbol of the strong familial and community ties that defined Viking society. The marriage itself was a public event, not just for the couple, but for the entire village. The celebration, the ceremony, and the feast were all part of a larger ritual that reinforced the ties between the individual and the community. In a world as harsh and unpredictable as the Viking world, those ties were everything. As the stars begin to appear in the sky, the village grows quiet once more. The sounds of the day have faded, replaced by the soft murmur of the wind through the trees, the occasional bleat of a goat, and the distant laughter of children, still playing in the fading light. You take a deep breath, the cool night air filling your lungs. There's a sense of peace here, despite the roughness of Viking life. In this village, in this community, there is a rhythm that can't be broken. You head back toward the village center, ready for another day. The next morning, the village feels different, but not in any dramatic way. It's more of a subtle shift, a quiet, unspoken change that's evident in the way people move, speak, and interact. The wedding has come and gone, but its after effects linger like the faint smell of mead and roasted meat in the air. It's not just the couple that has been transformed. The village itself feels more alive, more connected, as if the bonds between everyone have been reinforced, not just by ceremony, but by the shared experience of celebrating together. You walk through the village square, noticing that the usual bustle of morning activity is tempered today. There's a calmness in the air, a sense of purpose that feels different from yesterday. The blacksmith's forge is already smoking, the hammer striking iron with rhythmic precision. The women are at the wells, filling buckets with water, their voices low and steady as they chat quietly. The children play in the dirt, laughing and chasing each other as the village slowly wakes up. The bride and groom are already at their work. You spot them together in the fields, the groom lifting heavy sacks of grain, while the bride, her hair slightly disheveled from the day before, pulls weeds from the vegetable patch. There's no ceremony now, no applause, just the quiet hum of life, continuing as it always has. But you see something in their movements that you didn't notice before. They are partners in every sense of the word, their work seamlessly intertwined. There's no difference between what she does and what he does. They are both responsible for their home, for their family, for the community. They share the load, and in doing so, they've begun to build something far more important than just a marriage. They've begun to build a life. Historians often argue whether Viking marriages were more about survival or affection. Some scholars suggest that marriage was primarily an alliance formed for economic or social reasons, with love being a secondary consideration. Others, however, believe that affection played a larger role, pointing to the strong emotional bonds that were often formed between couples in Viking society. In the end, it was probably a bit of both. Love and survival were not separate, they were intertwined. The bonds of a Viking marriage were meant to endure through hardship, through cold winters and long sea voyages. You wander through the village a bit longer, taking in the sights and sounds of the morning. The air is cool, the sun still low in the sky, and you can feel the energy of the place, steady, calm, and sure. It's a village that has seen its fair share of hardship and celebration, but today it feels like a place of peace. As you pass the shame pillar, you notice that the names carved into its surface seem to glow a little more brightly in the morning light. You remember what you've heard about the people who are immortalized here, those whose mistakes have been etched into the stone for all to see. You wonder how they felt standing here, knowing that their actions would be remembered forever. And yet, there's something almost comforting about it. In Viking society, reputation meant everything, and even in disgrace, There was a certain honor in being remembered. You don't linger by the pillar for long. The air is still, and there's nothing but the sound of footsteps behind you, the echo of life continuing on. You walk past, not really sure what it means to be part of a community like this, but knowing you are. Historians suggest that Viking communities were tightly knit, with every member playing a specific role in maintaining order and survival. The social structure was rigid, but it also provided a sense of belonging and purpose. Being a part of a village like this meant more than just living in close proximity to others. It meant that you were bound together by shared customs, values, and responsibilities. Whether you were a warrior, a farmer, a smith, or a healer, your role in the village mattered. Everyone had a purpose. The village square is now bustling with the usual activity. The merchants are setting up their stalls. The children are running past you, laughing as they chase one another, and the blacksmith is hard at work, hammering away at his latest creation. The wedding may be over, but life continues, steadily, quietly, and with a sense of continuity that is almost comforting. You find yourself drifting back to your thoughts, to the things you've seen and experienced in this Viking village. There's a rhythm here, a pulse that's hard to describe, but it's something you can feel deep in your bones. It's not just about survival, it's about community, about being part of something bigger than yourself. As the day progresses, the wedding becomes a memory. The village moves on, but in its own way, the wedding has left its mark on the bride, the groom, and the village itself. It has reinforced the bonds that hold this place together, and as you watch the villagers go about their day, you feel the quiet strength of that bond. It's a reminder that, in Viking life, the personal and the communal are always intertwined. And as the sun climbs higher in the sky, you realize that there's a certain beauty in the simplicity of it all. The wedding may have been a grand affair, but the real work is in the quiet moments, in the shared labor, in the bonds that grow stronger with each passing day. As the day wears on, you find yourself sitting on a weathered log by the edge of the village, gazing out over the fields. The sun is higher now, its warmth spreading over the land. The air smells of fresh earth and new beginnings, mixed with the faint scent of smoke still lingering in the village from last night's fires. It's the quiet of the afternoon, when everything seems to settle into place, and the noise of the morning fades into a peaceful hum. The village is still bustling, but now it feels more like a community. The initial excitement of the wedding has settled into routine. You watch as people go about their work. Some are tilling the soil in the fields, others are fixing roofs or repairing fences. The sounds of labor mix with the occasional laugh or shout of greeting as villagers pass each other. There's a rhythm here, a flow to the day that feels timeless, like the heartbeat of the village itself. The bride and groom are still in the fields, working together as they always will. You can see them in the distance, standing side by side, their movements synchronized. The bride is carrying a bundle of firewood, while the groom is driving the plow. You can tell they've already settled into their new roles, their new life. It's not glamorous, but it's real. They are both part of something larger than themselves now. Something that can withstand the hardships of Viking life. As you sit there, a young child comes running past you, his laughter ringing through the air. He's chasing a ball made of rags, and his energy is infectious. You smile, watching him run toward the distant horizon, free and unburdened. It's moments like these, simple, fleeting, that remind you of the importance of community. The child's joy is shared by everyone in the village, just as the work and struggles are shared by all. In this place, you're never truly alone. Historians often talk about the strength of Viking communities, their ability to endure hardship and thrive despite the challenges they faced. One of the reasons Vikings were able to build such strong societies was because of the deep sense of community they shared. They didn't just rely on family, they relied on each other. In Viking villages, every member was essential. Whether you were a warrior, a farmer, a healer, or a craftsman, your role mattered. And together, they formed something that could stand the test of time. You look around at the people in the village, the blacksmith hammering iron, the women weaving cloth, the children running around with carefree abandon, and you realize that this is what Viking life was about. It wasn't about glory or fame. It wasn't about individual achievement. It was about the collective, the village, the community, the shared purpose. That's what made them strong. As the afternoon drifts into evening, you notice the village beginning to quiet down. The sun dips lower in the sky, casting a warm golden light over everything it touches. The sounds of the day start to fade as people begin to retreat into their homes. The air grows cooler, and the wind rustles the leaves of the trees. It's the end of another day, another chapter in the story of this Viking village. You stand up and stretch, feeling the stiffness in your limbs from sitting for so long. You begin to make your way toward the center of the village, where the fire is being lit for the evening meal. The smoke rises in the air, and the warm light flickers across the faces of those gathered around it. The villagers are settling in for the night, preparing to share a meal, to laugh, to tell stories, and to rest. You've spent the day observing, watching the quiet strength of Viking life unfold before you. And now, as the night falls, you find yourself feeling a quiet sense of satisfaction. There's a peace here, a sense of belonging that you can't quite put into words. The village is not perfect, but it's real. And for now, that's enough. Historians often describe Viking life as harsh and unforgiving. They talk about the long winters, the raids, the constant struggle for survival. But in the midst of all that, there was beauty. Beauty in the community. Beauty in the simple moments, like the quiet of the evening, the shared meal, the warmth of the fire. Viking life may have been difficult, but it was also rich with meaning. And as you sit by the fire, surrounded by the warmth of the village, you can't help but feel that richness, that depth. The fire crackles and pops, sending sparks into the night. The villagers begin to sing, their voices rising in harmony, filling the night air with the sound of ancient songs. It's a song of home, of belonging, of survival. And as you listen, you realize that this is what Viking life was all about. It was about the people, about the bonds that held them together. It was about surviving, yes, but it was also about living. As you sit there, listening to the song and watching the flames dance in the firelight, you feel a sense of peace settle over you. The Viking village may not have been perfect, but it was home. And in this moment, that's all that matters. The warmth from the fire lingers in the cool evening air as the night stretches on, the stars beginning to blink awake in the darkening sky above. The village is quieter now, with only the flickering firelight casting long shadows over the huts and the steady rhythm of the villagers' voices rising and falling in the background. You find a spot near the edge of the fire, where you can see the embers glowing in the hearth, the faces of the villagers bathed in its orange glow. There's a certain peacefulness to this moment, a simplicity that feels like it has always been. The wedding, the feast, the vows, it all feels like a part of something bigger, a cycle that stretches back centuries. The sounds of the night, the crackling of the fire, the soft murmurs of conversation, they all blend together into a steady rhythm. You realize you've become a part of that rhythm, even if you're only here for a short while. The couple, now wed, are sitting a little further away from the fire, their heads close together as they talk quietly. There's no grand speech, no formal exchange of words, just two people, quietly sharing their thoughts in the warmth of their new life. Their love is not the only thing that has changed since the ceremony. It's the whole village. The air feels different, thicker with something intangible. You can't quite place it, but it's there, hanging in the atmosphere like the smoke from the fire. Historians often suggest that Viking marriages, despite the outward appearance of pragmatism, were full of moments like this. Quiet exchanges, simple gestures of love and support, wrapped up in the unspoken understanding that survival depended on each other. Viking marriages weren't just romantic. They were about partnership and strength, about working together for a future, and understanding that the community was the lifeblood of all things. As you sit by the fire, listening to the villagers share stories, your thoughts drift back to the ceremony. The vows exchanged with such solemnity now feel like an anchor, something that's holding everyone in place, guiding their actions and decisions. You can almost feel the weight of those vows settling over the village, not as a burden, but as a source of strength. A child runs past, his face flushed with excitement, a small wooden toy clutched in his hand. He's playing a game, pretending to be a warrior, charging across the village with his toy sword raised high. The sight makes you smile. So simple, so innocent. The children of the village will grow up hearing these stories, participating in these traditions, and one day they'll sit around this fire just like the elders do now. The cycle will continue. The marriage vows will be passed down, strengthened by time and shared experience, woven into the very fabric of Viking life. You watch as the groom, now resting by the fire, raises his cup and takes a long drink of mead. The bride follows suit, and they exchange a look, one of quiet understanding, of something that has been shared between them and witnessed by everyone here. The village nods in approval, not because of the formality of the vows, but because of the deep, unspoken connection that has been forged between them. It's this shared bond, the sense of community and togetherness, that truly seals the marriage in Viking society. You look around at the faces illuminated by the firelight, the people who have gathered to witness this event. There's no rush, no sense of urgency. Everyone seems content, as if there is no need for anything more. The feast, the vows, the celebration, it's enough. It's always been enough. There's comfort in that simplicity, in the quiet knowing that this is how it has always been. There's no grand future to worry about, no monumental goal to strive toward. Just life, as it has always been, moving forward with each passing day. The stars are now high above, twinkling faintly in the vast dark sky, the fire flickering and popping softly in the center of the square. The laughter has faded, replaced by the quiet murmur of conversation. The villagers continue their stories, and you're drawn into one about a legendary Viking warrior, whose feats in battle were matched only by his mischievous pranks. You can't help but chuckle at the tale, the humor lightening the mood, but there's a sense of awe that lingers in the air. In the Viking world, stories were everything. They connected the past to the present, and the present to the future. It's a reminder that, in this village, everyone's story matters. Historians debate whether Viking societies truly believed in the power of storytelling. Some suggest that stories were used as moral lessons, while others believe they were simply a form of entertainment. What's certain is that storytelling played a vital role in Viking life. The stories of the ancestors were passed down through generations, shaping the identity of the village and its people. Each person here, whether young or old, was part of that tradition. The night draws on, and you begin to feel the weight of the day's events settling in. The fire's warmth is still comforting, but your eyelids are heavy and the pull of sleep is undeniable. You take one last look at the couple, now speaking softly to each other, their faces illuminated by the firelight. You can see the beginning of something great unfolding before you. This village, this community, is stronger than it was yesterday. And the new couple, well, they are no longer just individuals. They are now part of something far bigger than themselves. The last embers of the fire glow softly as you rise, feeling the cool night air against your skin. The village is quiet, but there's a sense of fulfillment that fills the space around you. The wedding may be over, but it's clear that this is only the beginning of something much larger, something that will endure. You smile softly to yourself and slip into the shadows, ready to rest, knowing that tomorrow the cycle will continue. The next morning arrives slowly, like a gentle wave lapping against the shore. The cool air and soft light of dawn fill the village square, but today there is something different in the stillness. The wedding is now a memory, its echoes fading into the rhythm of daily life. You rise early, stretching your stiff limbs as the morning mist clings to the ground. The scent of fresh earth and the lingering smell of last night's fire fills your lungs. The world is quiet, yet alive with the promise of another day. As you step outside, you can see the village beginning to stir. The blacksmith's forge is already lit, the rhythmic clang of hammer striking iron ringing in the air. The women are busy by the well, collecting water for the day's chores, their hands steady as they work. The children, still young and carefree, run past, their laughter echoing as they race through the square, chasing each other in a game of tag. There's a certain ease to the morning, a calm before the bustle of the day picks up. The newlywed couple, still wearing their simple, everyday clothing, are already at work. The bride is in the fields, collecting bundles of straw while the groom is walking beside her, pulling a cart filled with grain. You notice how they work together without a word, each movement smooth, coordinated. The bond between them is now fully formed, not just in the ceremonial vows, but in the daily tasks that await them. You realize that in Viking society, these everyday moments are just as important as the grand ceremonies. Their marriage is not just about promises made in front of the gods, but about the shared labor, the shared responsibility that comes with building a life together. You watch them for a moment longer, the couple moving seamlessly together, and then turn your attention to the rest of the village. The people here are resilient, their lives intertwined by necessity and tradition. The weight of their lives is in the simple acts: the blacksmith shaping iron, the women gathering water, the children playing in the fields. It's a rhythm that beats through the village, steady and unbroken. The morning feels peaceful, but there's an undercurrent of something else, something deeper. You can see it in the eyes of the older villagers, who carry the weight of years lived and battles fought. They move with purpose, but there's an air of quiet contemplation around them. They are the ones who remember the old ways, the old stories, and who keep the traditions alive, even as the younger generation carries on the work of the land. As you walk past the old stone pillar, the one where names of the disgraced are carved into the surface, you feel a chill. The pillar is quiet now, the runes worn smooth by time, but it still holds a sense of power. It's a reminder of the cost of dishonor, of the lasting consequences of one's actions. You wonder, as you stand there for a moment, if the newlyweds ever think about their own legacy, their names, their children, their place in the village's history. Historians have long argued about the role of shame in Viking society. Some say that public punishments like the shame pillar were a way to ensure social order, a constant reminder of the consequences of breaking the rules. Others believe it was a form of psychological punishment, a means of stripping away a person's identity and turning them into a symbol of disgrace. Either way, the shame pillar is a stark contrast to the joy and celebration of the wedding you witnessed. It's a reminder that Viking life, while full of camaraderie and celebration, also carried with it the weight of responsibility, of reputation, and of the consequences that came with one's actions. As you continue your walk through the village, you find yourself reflecting on the wedding once again. The vows, the feast, the dancing, all of it was a celebration of life, of survival, of the bonds that tie people together. But now, as the work of the village picks up, it's clear that the real test of marriage comes not in the ceremony, but in the daily work that follows. It's in the quiet moments when the world is still, and the tasks at hand are the only things that matter. The villagers are starting to settle into their routines, their movements steady and purposeful. The air smells of fresh bread baking in the ovens, and the sound of footsteps in the dirt fills the square. The wedding may have been a high point, but it's the steady hum of daily life that defines this village. The bride and groom, now bound together not just by vows but by the simple acts of labor and living, are already a part of it. As the sun climbs higher, the village comes alive with activity, each person playing their part in the ongoing story of Viking life. The work, the rituals, the traditions, they continue, woven together in a tapestry that has been shaped by centuries of survival, love, and loss. In this place, life doesn't stop for celebrations. It moves forward, ever steady, ever strong. Historians often describe Viking life as harsh, with long winters and constant threats from the outside world. But they also describe it as resilient, a life built on the bonds of family, community, and shared labor. The Viking wedding, with all its traditions and rituals, is a perfect reflection of that. It's a moment of celebration, yes, but it's also a reminder that life in this world is about more than just the moment. It's about what comes after, the work, the survival, the building of a future together. And so, as the day stretches on, you feel a sense of peace, knowing that in this village, life will continue. The bride and groom, now partners in every sense of the word, will face whatever comes their way together. And the village, bound by shared history and tradition, will stand strong, as it always has. As the sun begins to set, casting a soft orange hue across the village, you find yourself on the outskirts of the square, watching as the day shifts into evening. The villagers, no longer rushing about in the frenzy of morning work, have settled into a quieter rhythm. The sky above is streaked with the colors of the setting sun, and the evening chill starts to creep in, signaling the end of another busy day. You feel the air around you cool as the village transitions from the warmth of the day to the stillness of night. The couple, having worked side by side all afternoon, now walks toward their home. The groom carries a bundle of firewood, while the bride, holding her veil carefully to keep it from the wind, walks beside him. Their footsteps are slow, unhurried, and though they've faced so much already, you can see a quiet contentment in the way they move together. It's a soft, peaceful moment, a stark contrast to the intensity of their wedding day. They are no longer the center of attention. Now, they are simply two people, sharing the small, everyday tasks that make up a life. You follow them with your eyes, reflecting on the simplicity of their connection. In the Viking world, nothing is ever as straightforward as it seemed. Even something as pure as marriage carried with it the weight of duty, tradition, and survival. Yet, in this moment, the simple act of walking side by side in the fading light is everything. It's the quiet heart of Viking life, the acknowledgement that, despite everything else, what truly matters is the bond between two people and the community that holds them. Historians often debate the place of marriage in Viking society. Some argue that it was a sacred bond, driven by love, while others suggest it was a political and social necessity, where survival was more important than affection. The truth is likely somewhere in the middle. Viking marriages were a mixture of practicality and deep emotional connection. The bonds formed were crucial for survival, but they were also meaningful in ways that transcended the mundane. It was in the quiet moments like these, the small gestures of care, that the true essence of Viking unions was found. As the couple disappears into the warmth of their home, the rest of the village begins to settle down as well. You hear the last of the children's laughter fade away, and the sounds of work quiet down. The blacksmith has finished his day's work, and the few remaining villagers gather around the fire, talking in low voices, sharing stories of the day. The warmth of the fire crackles in the distance, casting long shadows across the village square. You make your way back toward the center of the village, where the fire is still burning, though the flickering light now seems softer, more subdued. A few villagers remain, lost in quiet conversation, while others prepare for bed. The night air feels different now, cooler, heavier with the sense of closing. The firelight shimmers against the night, a small beacon in the vast, dark expanse beyond the village. As you sit by the fire, you can't help but reflect on the day. The wedding, the vows, the feast, all of it now feels like a distant memory. The energy of the village has shifted. There is no longer the excitement of the ceremony or the hustle of preparation. Now, there's only peace. The village is at rest, and so too are you. The evening has settled into a gentle rhythm, like the heartbeat of the community, quiet but steady. Historians point to the Viking emphasis on rest and renewal as key aspects of their cultural practices. Despite the harshness of their lives, raids, battles, and harsh winters, they placed a great deal of importance on the quiet moments of respite, the evenings by the fire, the moments of shared warmth and quiet conversation were just as much a part of Viking life as the raids and battles. This balance between action and rest, between work and relaxation, was what allowed Viking societies to thrive. It was not just about fighting or surviving. It was about finding peace in the midst of it all. As the last of the villagers drift off to their homes, you watch the fire slowly die down, the embers glowing faintly in the night. The stars above twinkle in the dark sky, silent witnesses to the passing of another day. The village is quiet now, its heartbeat steady and slow. You feel the weight of the day's events settling in, a sense of contentment washing over you. This is Viking life, simple and complex in equal measure. The weddings, the feasts, the struggles, all of it is part of the same story, woven together into the fabric of existence. You stand up, stretching your arms, and take one last look around. The village, peaceful under the stars, feels like a world unto itself. The connections between the people here, forged through ceremony, work, and shared experience, are strong. They are bound not just by blood, but by the very land they inhabit. You walk slowly back to your place, the cool night air caressing your face, and for a moment you feel part of something larger, something timeless. The morning after the calm, the world seems a little slower, a little quieter. The air is crisp, though the warmth of the sun is already beginning to creep through the lingering shadows of the morning fog. The village, still waking from the last vestiges of the evening, feels peaceful, almost as if it too is taking a deep breath before the next task begins. The echoes of the wedding festivities from days before have settled into the rhythm of daily life. The sounds of clinking tools, hooves on cobbled streets, and murmurs of conversation feel like the steady beat of the village's heart, alive but at ease. You wander through the village square, now familiar with the faces you see. The blacksmith is already at his forge, the rhythmic hammering a constant backdrop to the morning. The women, too, have already begun their chores. Some are gathering firewood, others preparing the hearths for cooking. It's a normal day in the life of the Viking village, but there's something undeniably comforting about it. Despite the cold mornings and difficult work, there's a sense of contentment, as if the village knows exactly what it's doing. The newlywed couple is nowhere to be seen. Perhaps they are in the fields, tending to their duties. Perhaps they're at home, sharing the quiet of their first days together as husband and wife. It's strange how, after the grand celebration, the focus has shifted so quickly. Yet, you realize that the wedding was only the beginning of their new life together. Now, the real work begins. The wedding was a public display, but it's the everyday moments, the shared labor, the small acts of love that will determine the strength of their bond. Historians often point to the quiet domesticity of Viking life as being just as important as the public ceremonies. While Viking weddings were grand affairs, the real test of a marriage lay in the day-to-day, the hardships, the work, the routine. These were the things that forged the true partnership between a husband and wife. The feast and the vows were only a small part of what made a Viking marriage work. The rest came from the quiet moments, the work done side by side, the bond forged in the fire of daily life. You stop near the well, watching as the women fill their baskets and water their plants. A few children run by, playing their games in the dirt. You smile at the simplicity of it all. Life may be tough here, but it's also rich in ways you hadn't expected. The communal effort, the shared work, the sense of togetherness. These are the things that make the village thrive. It's not the grand gestures, but the everyday moments, the steady rhythm of life that holds it all together. You notice one of the younger women walking past, a basket of eggs in her hands. She nods at you as she passes, and you realize that, though you've only been here a short while, you've begun to feel a part of the village. You've shared the wedding, the laughter, the food, and now you're here for the quieter moments. You're not just an outsider anymore. You're part of the village's fabric, woven into its story by the simple acts of participation. The sun climbs higher, warming the village square and casting long shadows on the ground. The rhythm of the day picks up again. You watch as the villagers work, the sound of metal striking metal, wood creaking, and the occasional shout filling the air. Life continues on, steady and sure. You take a deep breath, feeling the connection to the place, to the people, to the land. It's a strange feeling, being part of something larger, something that has existed for centuries, where every individual is connected by shared purpose and tradition. As you continue through the village, you pass the small communal fire pit where a few people are gathered, cooking meat over the open flame. The air is filled with the smell of roasting food, the scent of salt and smoke, mixing with the sweet fragrance of herbs. A few children are playing nearby, running between the stone pillars, their laughter bright in the morning air. It's a beautiful, peaceful moment, one that feels timeless in its simplicity. The villagers nod and smile at you as you walk past, acknowledging your presence without words. There's a quiet understanding between you and them now. You're no longer a stranger. You're part of the story, even if only for a short time. And as the sun continues to climb, you realize that this village, this way of life, is something that transcends time. It's about more than survival. It's about connection. It's about the bonds that tie people together, whether through a wedding, a shared meal, or the simple act of working together. Historians often debate the role of community in Viking life, but it's clear that these connections were vital. The shared work, the collective responsibility, the communal moments, these were what gave Viking society its strength. It wasn't just about warriors and raiders. It was about families, about homes, about people working together to create something that would last. And in that moment, standing in the heart of the village, you understand that. As the day stretches on, you find yourself feeling a sense of calm. The chaos of the wedding is long gone, and what remains is the steady pulse of Viking life. You take a final glance around the village, feeling the weight of the history that surrounds you. The wedding was only a chapter in the story of this place, but it was a chapter that has left its mark on everyone who witnessed it. The next few days slip by quietly, as though the village is drawing in a collective breath after the celebration. Life returns to its familiar pace. The blacksmith works at his forge. The women tend to their gardens and animals. The children continue their games, and the men go about the tasks that keep the village running. But now, there's a subtle undercurrent, an awareness that the wedding, the vows, the feast, and all that followed were not just fleeting moments of joy. They were part of something larger. You begin to see how everything in this village, from the smallest chore to the grandest ceremony, is woven together with a sense of purpose, of continuity. The bride and groom are no longer the center of attention, but their union is still the thread that ties this all together. You pass them in the village square a few times, their heads bent together in quiet conversation, as though they are finding their rhythm as a couple in these small everyday moments. You spot them working side by side, always in motion, moving seamlessly between their duties. She brings fresh herbs from the garden, while he repairs a broken fence. Their cooperation is effortless, a tangible sign of their bond. It's strange to think that this was the heart of Viking life. Not the grand battles, not the fierce raids, but the small moments, simple exchanges, shared chores, a steady partnership. As you watch them, you realize how important it was for Viking society to focus on these day-to-day moments. The world was harsh, and every person had a role to play. A wedding, a feast, a celebration. It wasn't just about fun or romance. It was about survival, about ensuring that the next generation would be cared for, that the village would thrive, not just now, but into the future. Historians still argue about the role of marriage in Viking culture. Some believe that marriages were arranged with practical goals in mind, such as alliances and land ownership, while others suggest that love was a central factor. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. The Viking world was built on strength and survival, and marriage was a way of ensuring that strength, whether through mutual love, mutual respect, or mutual need. It was a partnership that ensured the survival of both individuals and the community at large. One evening, as you sit by the fire in the village square, you watch as a group of elders gather around, telling stories in the flickering light. Their faces are wise and weathered, their voices low and steady. They speak of the old ways, of the gods and the heroes, and of the sacrifices that were made to ensure the future of the village. You listen quietly, feeling a deep sense of connection to these people, to their history, and to the land that has nurtured them. A woman, sitting beside you, leans in and whispers, "The gods are always watching," as though sharing a secret. You nod in understanding. In Viking culture, the gods were not distant beings, existing in some faraway realm. They were part of every action, every moment, from the smallest chore to the grandest battle. Every moment was a chance to show reverence, to live up to the gods' expectations. You sit in silence for a while, taking in the firelight, the warmth of the community, and the quiet sense of peace that now surrounds you. Life in the Viking village is always shifting, always moving forward, but there's something comforting in the way it has remained constant. The wedding may have been a significant event, but it was just one part of the ongoing cycle of life here. It was a celebration, yes, but it was also a reminder. Life is about the little moments. It's about building something that endures, just as the Vikings have done for centuries. The night grows deeper, and the fire begins to die down, the embers glowing softly in the dark. People start to drift off to bed, their steps quiet against the earth. The village is peaceful again, the stillness hanging in the air. You rise slowly, stretching your limbs, and make your way toward your home. The stars above are bright, twinkling in the clear night sky, and for a brief moment, you feel completely at peace. Historians have often described Viking life as brutal, filled with conflict and hardship, but they also emphasize the strength of the community, the bond that held people together through it all. The wedding was just one example of that bond. It was a celebration, a binding of two lives, but it was also a reaffirmation of something much deeper. The village, the community, the tradition, it all works together, each piece contributing to the larger whole. You think back to the moments you've witnessed, the wedding, the vows, the feast, the quiet domestic life that followed, and you realize that the true beauty of Viking life is in these connections. It's in the work, the loyalty, the love that sustains the community. It's not just about surviving, it's about living. And in this village, you understand that living is something more than just getting by. It's about creating something that lasts, something that can endure the harshest of winters and the darkest of nights. As you lie down to sleep, the firelight fading into a soft glow in the distance, you feel a quiet sense of contentment. Tomorrow will come, and the cycle will begin again. But for now, you're at peace. The wedding, the feast, the community, it all feels like a part of you now, and you realize that you're not just witnessing Viking life, you're living it. Living